In one interview I read with you, you said there's no safe place to hide financial assets during a downturn, and that the system is in and of itself kind of rigged against small investors, which I think almost everybody is a small investor if we look at just 100% of the investors that are around. Does it make sense to just let your money sit under the mattress? I mean, in what ways do you say move into the non-financial types of assets? What does that mean? I think to some people it would be a little confusing.
David, this is a huge subject, but my primary thesis on all this is that we had this huge run-up in stocks. It started in 1982, ran up through around 2000. In fact, we just closed the books on this decade, and stocks returned a negative return for the whole decade. But still, after 10 years, that's not long enough. Some people are still fixated on stocks. The way I look at it, we had a huge stock bubble through the 90s. It burst, and the Federal Reserve did everything it could, and it pushed, and it created another bubble, this time in housing. That expanded and burst with even larger economic problems for people. My belief is that everybody's going to then get squeezed into the third bubble, this next one which is going to follow, and this is going to be in bonds. And if this is true, then Treasury bonds would be my number one candidate for something that's in an enormous bubble right now.
Even though they're earning almost nothing, right?
Well, that's why they're in a bubble, because when bonds yield almost nothing, it means their price is very high.
Inversely,
they're inversely related. So the price on treasuries, given the fact the United States ran a $1.8 trillion deficit this year, it's an amazing, I mean, this is banana republic territory kind of stuff, and still treasuries are yielding a very low amount, only because the Federal Reserve has been stepping in and buying and supporting that market with some help from other foreign central banks. So I believe that that's when everybody knows something, that's when I get uncomfortable. And everybody knows that treasuries are the safest place to park your money. I think that's just another bubble that's waiting to be revealed as an illusion. And so the primary purpose of a bear market is to take everybody's wealth away. And it's not just a bear market in stocks. This is a bear market across our society at this point in time. So equities burst, pop. Housing, pop. I think there's a third one waiting out there, whether it happens this year or 3 or 5 years out. It's really something that people, if they can see it coming, can position themselves to avoid it. I felt a lot of people avoid pain.
Give us a few examples of these I think I have it here. You say that out of the financial system altogether is where people should be moving some of their assets. How does one do that? What's an example of that?
Well, right now, if you're in the financial system, people say, well, I'm diversified. My stockbroker's got me. I'm well diversified.
Real estate, stocks, bonds.
Right.
Right.
But you're not if you're 100% exposed to the dollar. It means that you still have one primary diversification you haven't undertaken, which is if the dollar really tanks in some meaningful way, all of your other holdings will tank. And the purpose is not to gain wealth. It's to just preserve purchasing power during a primary bear market. That's where I think we are, and that's everything tells me we're still there, recovery, green shoots notwithstanding. So what I like to do is take some of my money and have it out of the paper dollar market. I moved a lot of my wealth and people who listen to me into gold and silver back in 2003, and now I'm keenly looking at primary production of wealth. I think we're going back to the old story. If you took a picture of this town in 1880, you would see where the wealth was. It was located in the most fertile valley bottoms. It was located near the stream that had the water flowing that you could utilize. It was where the best timber was growing. Those were the people who had the real wealth, were sitting on those primary assets.
So farming is where we want to go.
Absolutely. I think farming is where we're going to go.
Everybody should be working the land is what you're suggesting.
And improving the land, not just working it. There's farming where you strip mine the soil, and there's farming where you improve the soil. It's that latter one that I really think is where the future is.
Let's assume that not everybody is going to take that advice. We're still going to have people working in the medical field, insurance, retail, so on and so forth. Are gold and silver really the answer? I mean, in radio right now, there's a huge trend of these gold advertisers. There's Roslyn Capital, Gold Line, so on and so forth. There's a whole bunch of these. If you turn on commercial radio, you hear advertisements for gold. I even went to a talk radio seminar, and the gold people are at the talk radio seminar presenting on gold is at the highest value in I don't know how many years. To me, that sounds like it's still the financial market, though, is it not? I mean, it's a commodity that has a price that fluctuates similar to a stock.
Absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. In fact, the number of people who are now piling into it makes me nervous. I am, by definition, a contrarian investor. I loved it when everybody hated it. I'm a little bit nervous about it now.
Because more people are into gold.
Yes. When everybody piles into something, it's not the place you want to be at the end of the day.
But
even still, one thing about the reason I like gold is that it's still the only other thing besides paper currency that I can find that sits in the vaults of central banks. It means it still has a monetary role. It's not playing one right now, but if it had no monetary value, no role, It was just another commodity. I believe the central banks would have dishoarded all of their gold holdings. They've had 30 years since the breaking of the gold standard in 1971 to do that, and they haven't. So I like to trust what people do more than what they say, and the central banks have been talking about gold as a barbarous relic, and they hate it and has no role, but they still got it. So that's where I take my cue on gold.
Let me remind our audience, if they're just tuning in, we're speaking with Chris Martenson from chrismartenson.com, and that's Martenson. I want to talk a little bit about so-called green jobs. There's one side that says green jobs are the future, and these are all kind of utopian, very general statements. Green jobs are the future. Green jobs are the future of the U.S. economy, so on and so forth. There's another side which criticizes green jobs and says they are a possible driver of short-term economic growth and recovery, but a lot of these jobs are temporary. A lot of so-called green jobs are energy retrofit type of jobs or installing solar panels, so on and so forth. Where do you come down on that?
I'm absolutely on the side of green jobs and that we need them, but I'm going to have to put a little twist on this. The thing that I care about most, if I could create that utopian world, we would no longer ask the question, how much money does it cost to put this project in, or how much money are we going to get back from this project? We'd be asking the most important question, which is, what is the energy return on the energy we're going to invest in this project? And by that basis, I think the world snaps into clear focus for me. So the investing world is not confusing to me at all when I look at it through this lens which says, net free energy is the thing we care about most. That's what's left over after you put some energy in and you get some energy out. On that basis, corn-based ethanol is a dog. It is a complete disaster of a program. Insulating houses is a complete winner.
And this is when, on small scale, we're talking about the amount of energy saved by adding additional insulation is more than the energy required to make and install the insulation.
Correct.
Is that the kind of comparison that you make?
Absolutely. And so we would start evaluating all of our options and priorities in this country based on net free energy. So we would understand, gee, do we want to put in a maglev train, or would we rather upgrade the barge system? Should we be putting more money into this kind of transportation? Hey, should we get carbon fiber cars with electric motors? We don't know, because actually we don't know what the net free energy return is. We've never had a serious national commission to study this. I think we ought to have some sort of agency, well-funded, that can answer these specific questions. That it's one of the most important things we're going to look at. What should we be pursuing as a nation? Because we've got to shepherd the remaining energy we've got, but it also makes great business sense. And it makes it's absolutely the right business decision, but we don't look at it that way. We look at it through this other lens, which is, where's the money in all of this? And the problem with that is that so much of that landscape is distorted by subsidies that create odd pricing. And so I'm saying ultimately that the dollar and the value we see is not giving us the right story. And we need to sort of break that down. And when we do that, I think that's where green jobs just absolutely snap into clear focus, and a lot of them make incredibly good sense.
So
maybe not all of them, but a lot of them.
You're not too concerned about green jobs as a whole being highly temporary jobs that may make the economy seem better on paper in the short term, but won't really add long term to the productivity. That's not a concern for you.
No, quite the opposite. I think that green jobs are going to be with us for a very long time, and we're going to have to be even smarter and more clever. And we're going to need bright, young, shiny kids getting minted out of college who really understand. It's very highly complicated and technical to do these things right. And I'm a huge supporter of it.